Hey, what's up, everybody? We just wanted to have a conversation today about faith. And I wanted to unpack what faith actually is for us as believers and how every single person in this world actually is a person of faith. And I know there's probably been a lot of people who maybe you've encountered in your life and you've heard the opposite. There's people who claim that they don't have any faith. And so we wanted to have a conversation around that today. And here is one of the main problems with us as human beings and when we're going throughout our life. A lot of us struggle with being in the unknown. We struggle when we don't have all the facts. And we're not good with uncertainty. And maybe you've noticed that throughout this quarantine and throughout just this world shift and how our world is completely changed. We all had a routine and we were all very comfortable in our routine. And then our routines got interrupted. And for some of us, that's very uncomfortable. And there are some valid things that are uncomfortable about that, like losing our jobs and things like that. But for some of us, it's just a simple fact that things have changed that we're not okay with. And we long for certainty. We run to certainty. We want to be in the know. We want to live in a world of facts. Have you ever noticed that? And I think if we're all honest about ourselves and how we operate, we would all agree that we're more comfortable in that place. And I wanted to tell you that it is almost impossible to experience God when you live in a world of certainty and when you live in a world of facts. Because you know what you don't have when you live in a world of certainty and facts? You don't have faith. This is the only way for faith to exist is when things aren't certain. It's when you're in the unknown. And here is our problem. We fear the unknown. We fear it. And we need to stop looking at the unknown and reach for fear. We need to not fear the unknown. We need to have faith in the unknown. And we need to recognize that almost every moment of life is actually unknown. And we need to all choose faith in those moments. If we're always certain, then we're living in a world of facts, not faith. And if we're living in a world of facts, we won't experience God. We won't, because we won't be relying on our faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 says this in the NIV. It says, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we don't see." And I want to read this same exact verse in the Message version. In the Message version in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, it says, "The fundamental fact of existence is that this trust in God, this faith, is the firm foundation under everything that makes life worth living. It's our handle on what we can't see. The act of faith is what distinguished our ancestors and set them above the crowd." So we see our ancestors, the people who have gone before us, their faith is what set them apart. And I think that God wants us today in this moment, he wants our faith to be the thing that distinguishes us, that sets us apart from everybody else around us. Because times are always going to be uncertain. We're always going to be living in times where we don't have all of the answers. That's just life. But what's that thing that we can hold on to that can be our handle when we can't see? It's faith. That's what Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 in the Message version says. It says, our faith is our handle. It's our grip. It's that thing that we hold on to when we can't see. And there has been people in my life who have told me, I'm not really a person of faith. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. All of us are people of faith. The question isn't, do we have faith? The question is, who or what is our faith in? And what trials do, what change does, what uncertainty does, is it reveals where our faith is. So I want right now to take some time in this session to do what I like to call a faith check. And how do you do like a check and figure out where you're at in life? You take a test. So I have something that's called the faith test. And we're going to take a test together, and don't worry, it's not like a school test, right? This test is going to reveal to all of us who or what our faith is in. And it's so important to know where our faith is, because that is the single determining factor of our life. And maybe some of us haven't ever experienced God before because our faith has been in the wrong place. And we're going to unpack that together. So our faith test, it begins this way. There's only 3 things that your faith can be in. There's only 3. And I'm here to argue that today. And if you don't believe me, you can send me a message and we can have a further conversation about this. I could be wrong, right? So here is the first thing that our faith typically can be in. And our faith can be in all 3 of these things. Maybe one more than the other, but it can show up in all 3 of these things. So the first thing that a lot of us have faith in is ourself. It's ourself. And we have to have some faith in ourself, right? But it can be dangerous when we have too much faith in ourself. And for a lot of us, when we're going through life, when our faith is just in ourself, our relationships, the people that we relate to and the relationships that we have, they're surface level and they're a means to an end. And what do I mean by that? Well, when our faith is in ourself, who's the one person that we care about more than anything else? It's ourself. And self-preservation is that thing that we run to and gravitate towards. So if we've got friends in our life, really the only thing that we care about when our faith is in ourselves is how are these friendships serving me? When we have faith in ourselves, you know the characteristic that defines us more than anything else? And this is hard. It's hard. It's arrogance. It's pride. And that's because when we have faith in ourselves, our world revolves around us. All we care about is protecting ourselves, advancing ourselves, building our kingdom, because our faith is in ourselves, right? I've got to become the best version of me that I could possibly be. I've got to make the most money that I possibly can. My faith is in myself. My faith is in myself. And so there's moments too, we recognize when we're prideful or we're arrogant or we're frustrated even, and people annoy us. These are all check engine lights for us as human beings. When these things start happening to us in our lives, we need to stop and say, this is because I have too much faith in myself. The world is revolving around me in this moment. So that's the first test. That's the first checkpoint. A lot of us will have faith in ourselves, too much faith in ourselves. And then here is the next thing. Remember, there's only 3. So it's ourself. The next thing that we can have faith in, and it's good to have some faith in this, but we can't have too much. It's other people. It's other people. Well, what do you mean by that, Nate? We're supposed to have faith in other people, right? That's what a friendship is. Yes, that's true. But what happens when you have too much faith in other people? This is what happens. We start to become codependent. It's good to be emotionally connected to other people. That's how we experience love. But when we have ultimate faith in other people in our life, we start to become codependent on these people. And we might think that we have a really close relationship, but it can be a super unhealthy relationship because we're putting all of our faith, all of our trust, all of our hope in this person. And that is far too much weight and responsibility that we're putting on other people in our life. It's too heavy a burden to carry when we put that kind of weight on another human being. And we see that we start to, our lives and our relationships start to get characterized by anxiety. Because if we can't control the other people in our life that we have faith in, that's a problem. So when we start to manipulate the relationships around us and we start to get anxious because we feel like we're losing control, that's a faith test. That's how we check our faith. And then we can stop and say, I have placed too much faith, too much assurance in other people in my life. And hold up, there's an opposite pole that we can go in, right? When we recognize that we put too much faith in other people, it can cause us to close off, and then we start to put more faith back in ourselves. I'm here to argue that that's not the healthiest thing to do. So our faith can be in ourselves, our faith can be in other people, but then there's a third thing. There's a third thing or person that our faith can be in. And that third thing is our faith in God. Our faith in God. And when we have our ultimate hope, our ultimate assurance, all of our faith in God, we come alive in a whole new way. You see, we get unconditional love from God, And you know what we're able to do? We're able to live our life in a way that is more freeing than it ever has been before. Because now when people don't reciprocate the kind of love that we expect in our lives, it's okay. Because our ultimate faith is not in them, it's in God. And so that will overflow in our life, and it'll help us to love other people better than they deserve, because we know how much we're loved by God because our faith is in God. Our faith is in God. And how do you know your faith is in God? Your life and who you are, you're characterized by this one word, and it's humility. Humility. That's how you know your faith is in God. And so there's only three things that our faith can be in: ourself, others, and God. Our faith, first and foremost, needs to be in God. And what happens is we start to become humble. We start to become honest. We start to become vulnerable. And all of our relationships start to flourish because our faith is in the right place. And so I want this to be a reflection for all of us this week. I want us, because you know what this season has done? It's revealed to all of us where our faith is. And we can't grow in our faith if we don't know where we're at. That's why we need a faith test. That's why we need a faith check. We have to know where we're at so we can know where we need to go. And for some people, maybe you know that you've been in a super unhealthy relationship and it's been dysfunctional and you're beating yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. No. You might not even have to end that relationship. No. But you know what you can do? You can start placing your faith in the right place, and should I say the right person, in God. And your relationships will start to change. You will start to create healthy boundaries. You'll start to thrive as a human being. And even for all of us, this season, this pandemic, this coronavirus, for a lot of us, it's put us in a place of fear because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's a faith test for us. That's a faith test for us. For some of us, we care so much about our lives that we become nasty. We become selfish. We become brutal to the people around us. That's a faith test. God wants us to be set apart. He wants people to look at us and go, there's something different about them because of the way that they live their life. And we get an opportunity to show the world where our faith is. It's in God. It's in the person of Jesus, right? And so as we're going about our weeks, I want us to do an inventory check. I want us to be real about where we're at. And what we're going to do is we're going to get back together later this week, and we're going to talk about where our faith has been. And we're going to talk about where our faith needs to go. And so I really hope that all of you guys join in on this conversation with us together, because this is the one thing that will affect every area of your life. This is the most important thing that we can be doing right now, is self-evaluating and checking where our faith has been. And let's have a conversation together. Let's be there for each other. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's meet each other in grace and in love. And let's push each other closer to Jesus. So join in on this conversation with us. We'll see you guys.